describing your research to a partner or a supervisor or the client. Okay, so I understand we're going to raise a Brady claim here. Michaela, why don't you start by describing what a Brady claim is?
A Brady claim is when the government violates due process and they withhold information that is material, favorable, and
you got it. Withhold. Yeah. So Dimitri, talk to me about what material means in the context of a Brady claim.
Material, also referred to as prejudice, would be something would be material if it undermines the confidence in the verdict.
Yep.
Basically material to the defense.
Good. Anything else? You don't have to. But.
Should there be? I can throw
That we
some
cast
stuff.
down upon that.
I didn't know if you thought I interrupted you or not.
I think they're the first part of the definition that I had.
So, Zach, tell me about the material that was withheld in our case, in Maitland's case.
In the Maitland case, it was a note that was found by the prosecutor after the case, and I think he said there was like some office movement and they found it, so it was inadvertently withheld, and then they gave it to us, so then we were deciding what to do with it.
And why, what did the note say?
The note said that,
what
it said that the gun pretty much wasn't Maitland's and that it was Beck's, and that Maitland had no idea that it was in the car.
Okay. Who's Beck?
Bank.
Oh, Beck, sorry.
Yeah. I was confused. Okay, so Michaela, do you think that we have a successful verdict?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me why.
Basically, the gun charge was off the basis that the gun belonged to Maitland and it did not. It belonged to someone he allowed to use his car, and that was his major defense. So the note just kind of shows what he was saying is true.
Great. And Dimitri, what do you think is the best precedent for our attempt to show that this evidence was material?
I found a case, United States versus Johnson, that showed that the material, or that had similar elements. There was withheld evidence, and it was found to be material and favorable. And the evidence showed kind of the same thing, that the possession of the drugs and gun, like in our case, was not the defendant's.
Great, and good. And then Zach, imagine the original trial, but with this one new piece of evidence added to it, and then just kind of weigh for me the strengths and weaknesses of the prosecution's case, and tell me why, as you weigh them, that there's a reasonable probability of an acquittal.
I guess the only strength that they would still have is that he was like the owner of the car and he was the one driving it. So I think that would still be their biggest possession, or biggest argument for him having possession. But the note also goes to show that he had no knowledge of the gun and that it wasn't his. And so a reasonable person would not have been able to know that that gun was in his car. So I guess it does change the case in that sense.
Okay, great. So we'll stop there. Good job, everybody. Nice job describing Brady. Good job finding Johnson in your research. That's the best case to have found. It's the case that's most analogous to ours. And some good stuff there about weighing the strength of weaknesses. That analysis, those last two questions, will be the heart of your memo, because the most important section is the materiality section, the third subsection. Why is that? Because the first two, was the evidence favorable, was the evidence withheld? Those are obvious questions. There's really no doubt here about that. But persuading an appellate court that this withheld evidence was material will be more of a challenge. I think it's a challenge that Maitland is likely to succeed in, but more of a challenge. And so so that's why it's the most important. And then how will you go about that part of that subsection? A combination of using the Johnson precedent and weighing the strengths and weaknesses of the prosecution's case in light of this new evidence. Johnson, highly analogous, as Dimitri was saying, and then straight to Lewis's, it was not a slam dunk case for the prosecution to begin with. Their main witness, Tandino, was not particularly credible, because he had an incentive to lie. It's true the gun was found in the car, but now that key piece of evidence for the prosecution, as you were saying, is less powerful, because there's this new note that says the gun was owned by someone else. Just as in Johnson, the most powerful piece of evidence for the prosecution in Johnson was that the drugs were found in his room, but the new piece of evidence suggests, even though they were found in his room, they still weren't owned by him.
Well, and then in the Maitland case, didn't the guy that testified, I can't remember his name,
Tadino?
yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce it, I guess that's what I should have said. Didn't he say that it was his gun and that he was like a drug lord or something? Like, then
I think Tandino said that the gun belonged to Maitland.
So the note directly contradicts his whole statement.
Yeah, so in some ways it casts some more doubt on, cast doubt on what he said.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I didn't know if you, I think this is kind of off, and I probably wasn't going to put it in, but in Johnson, they kind of, one of the points of appeal was that, what was it? That there wasn't enough evidence that the prosecution didn't show enough evidence. I feel like in our case, that could be a point. Should I say like a sentence about that? Or?
Yeah, I think that because
there wasn't.
If in Johnson, the prosecution's case was pretty weak to begin with. Strong enough to win, but pretty weak. And in our case, likewise, the prosecution's case was strong enough to win, but pretty weak. The jury 3 days to deliberate, after all. Then it makes it easier for the withheld evidence to create a reasonable probability that the outcome would have been different had the withheld evidence been known. So think of prejudice materiality this way. Let's imagine two different scenarios. And in each case, the withheld evidence is the same. It's equally strong. And let's just call it like strong, not like smoking gun strong.
Mm-hmm.
This note is not a smoking gun. It doesn't prove that it wasn't.
Yeah.
If he didn't possess the gun. But it's strong. Now let's imagine these two scenarios. In one, the guy's convicted of murder, and he was caught on videotape committing the murder, and there were 14 eyewitnesses, and he confessed to the murder. And in scenario two, there was just like one eyewitness who had never seen him before, never saw him again, was pretty sure it was him, but not even like 100%. So in these two scenarios, withheld evidence that is strong evidence is going to make a difference in this scenario and not make a difference in this scenario. So it's going to be material here and not material here. So part of your job in the memo is explaining why this was a close enough case to begin with, that when you inject this withheld evidence, there's a reasonable probability it tips the balance from the government to the defense. My biggest yeah, you go ahead, because I'll remember mine.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Alright, I was just saying, so like, our biggest argument should be that the case was closed, not that this makes him innocent, and then after you say that the case was closed, say that this like can cast doubt upon it. Like, we're not pleading that he was innocent because
you don't have to show that he was innocent beyond a reasonable doubt. And you don't even have to show that the jury with this new evidence was likely to acquit. The phrase that you should use in this actually
Reasonable probability?
Yeah, is reasonable
That's what
probability.
I forgot.
So what does it mean for something to be material? It means there's a reasonable probability that the outcome of trial would
I
be
got it written right there.
it's what matters most is that you have it in the memo, in the final memo. So, yeah. So you can imagine a spectrum. 1% chance the outcome would have been different. That's not good enough. Reasonable probability the outcome would be different. That's good enough. Beyond a reasonable doubt that the outcome would have been different. That's fine if you can prove it, but you don't have to prove that. You just have to prove reasonable probability of a different outcome. Okay, so why don't I take another look at the outline, because I know I read what Dimitri first sent me.
Reasonable probability, oh, okay. This is the same thing that we first.
Yeah, I think we
That you
edited.
first sent? Okay, so you've got my feedback on that.
Yeah.
Did I?
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
you added some stuff though.
Well, we
I
were
don't
trying to
think, not
do-
into the printed one
we didn't
yet.
have
Yeah,
We
it was-
just,
Okay, that's
we
fine.
just added some stuff.
Well, you'll have a chance to do, not just a chance, you'll be required to do a first draft.
October
this-
24th.
Yep, and then we'll have another meeting to discuss that.
So with this, kind of just put it together, we take the outline parts out, now we architect it, right? Or is that the step
So
there?
you've kind of done the architect work,
Okay.
close to it, you know, you might wanna do.
He thought he was in the Mad Men. He's been telling us.
I was throwing it
That's
all
what he
in.
told us.
Now, the Mad Men phase is where you're just kind of going through Lexis and you're saying, okay, this is useful, that's useful.
Oh, okay.
This is a waste, that's a waste. But once you've created an outline, that's the architecture. You know, so the next phase is the carpenter phase. You
Mhm.
start building, start drafting, and then you can do a little bit of the final phase, the editing phase, even before you turn in your first draft to me.
Yeah.
But you'll continue to do the judge phase, the editing phase after that. And it seems like you all have worked pretty closely together. Is that a good sense of that? Have you thought about whether you'll work together for the final?
I don't know.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
Okay.
Like
we
we
all,
can work
like-
as a group to.
Like
to
to submit the
paper.
final.
Yeah, I mean, you haven't, at this point, the choice is yours going forward from now. If you want to work together, you can, and you'll submit one draft, one first draft on October 24th. I'll edit that and actually do verbal feedback. And then, you'll then submit one final draft on November 7th, or whatever the final day of class is.
Mhm.
And I think there can be advantages to working together. You know, there are, in some ways, working alone can be easier, but, I think there are some definite advantages to working together. So, you know, you don't have to decide right now, but you can think about, that. I've never done a group of 3, but, huh? Cheating. But it seems like you all have a pretty good working relationship, so, it's fine if the 3 of you wanna work together, it's fine if 2 of you wanna work together and 1 of you wants to do your own thing, it's fine if you all wanna do your own thing. Just wanted you to know that that's an option. Normally I would say keep it to 2, but, I think that, it seems like you all have been, working well together, so I'm gonna break that up unless you all want to, which is fine.
So we still wanted to, sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
And we still wanted to like all still work together, just all submit our own drafts, like for our own like, you know, writing styles. Is that
No, because,
copying?
no, yeah, it is. I mean, I want your, at this, from here forward, you need to decide whether you're going to be doing one work
Mhm.
product or separate ones.
Mhm.
And I'm fine either way. Like I said, I'm fine with 2 of you working together and 1 of you working separately, whatever. But if you're not working as a unit with
Like
one
one
final
paper.
work product, don't help each other. It's against the rules.
Okay.
I'm telling you now.
All right.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So, well, if we are working together, our plan is kind of to get a couple of rough drafts in before the rough draft this week, so can we just email those to you?
You can email a draft, you mean before the 24th?
Like, yeah, coming up this week, probably.
Yeah, you
'Cause
can
it's
email a
20
draft at any time, and you can also, don't feel like the 24th is your last chance to submit a draft. I mean, I think that, you know, if you submit, work together, submit a first draft for the 24th, see what the feedback is on that, and then feel free between then and the final draft to submit, you know, another draft or more, and come in and meet. I mean, usually, I do a lot of in-person meetings that are voluntary. There'll be one required one after the first draft, but then voluntary one after that, or one after that.
Cause Saturday I wanted to get you like a good version, like a rough draft, and then turn in, like make edits to that one, turn in one on Wednesday, then that weekend could maybe turn in another like rough draft.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just make it an appointment for Monday or Tuesday to, talk about whatever draft you send me before then, whatever
Okay.
draft you send me on Saturday.
Can I?
The 24th
And I won't be
next week.
here on.
Yeah, Wednesday next
On
week.
Monday, so it's gotta be Tuesday.
Okay,
Um,
but can I put an option to not meet in that contract, just in case we don't get everything done? I mean, I'm planning to,
Yeah, that's
but-
fine, yeah, of
okay.
course. So what time do you wanna pencil
Tuesday, that's towards
We
in.
get done at 12. Well, we have that Lexus thing though, from like 12 to 12:30.
So 1,
Okay.
if you want, if that's, is that good for you?
We have SSG.
Oh yeah, we have SSG Tuesday at 1. You do
I hate
12:30,
that class.
just between
Oh,
Lexus
yeah,
and.
cause it doesn't even be an hour long. Okay.
Alright, so